Hello guys, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to take another look at my giant ant farm. In the previous episode, we opened and emptied the infamous hidden box. If you didn't manage to catch that episode, I'll leave a link for it in the description. But in today's episode, we'll be turning the now barren tank into an epic ant island foraging area. So, to start off, we will need to give this dirty tank a good clean. Just a small word of warning, if you are ever cleaning out a glass or acrylic tank like this, be sure to stick to sponges and standard dish soap. You don't want to use anything that will scratch your setup or contaminate it with harmful liquids. Alright, let's do this. Voila! The tank is now fully cleaned and ready for the next step. Now, when thinking about an island setup, I didn't want to pour any water onto the base of the tank, as it has a giant crack in it. So I came up with the idea of layering the base of the tank with waterproof grout, and then slowly layering up the islands and the edges with additional grout afterwards. Okay, let's start by mixing up some grout. Now that it is at an adequate consistency, we can now pour it into the base of our tank. After applying this foundation layer, I let the grout harden for about an hour. Doing this will give us a stronger building block. When this is relatively hardened after an hour, it was now time to mix up some more grout and start to build the core of our islands. After this, it was time to sculpt the two islands. I mostly wanted to create gradual banks leading into the water. This way the ants would have less of a chance of accidentally stumbling into it. When this was done, it was time to spread some substrate onto the wet grout. I decided to use the soil from the previous hidden box, as it was the correct colour and consistency I needed to make the islands look natural. Shortly after sprinkling this substrate onto the surface of the islands, I proceeded to push it into the grout, so the ants could pick it up and move it after it had dried. After doing this, I then coated the rest of the foraging area with the same substrate and pushed it into the edges of the islands. To make the islands look more realistic, I chose to use some rainforest floor substrate. I carefully scattered this onto the tops of the islands. I then pressed some fake rainforest plants into the grout to give it a more genuine forest floor feel. When this was done, I then decided to wait 24 hours before proceeding, to give the grout a chance to dry. I returned the next day to find the grout fully dry and hardened. The tank would now be fully capable of holding water. But before adding the water, I had to figure out how the ants could get through the entry holes and onto the islands. So I come up with an idea. I decided to use some 8mm clear vinyl tubing to poke through the entry holes. I cut off two separate pieces of tubing to act as gateways into the foraging area. I then slit a line into the tubing about 2 centimeters long. After this, I drilled a small hole on top of the tubing, big enough for the ants to get through. I then pushed both the pieces of tubing into the entry holes of the foraging area, with the drilled hole and slit facing upwards. Now you may be thinking at this point, how's this going to work? Well, I'm going to start by using some of this coarse rope to act as vines. I started by pushing this rope into the tubing where I made the slit, but leaving enough room for the ants to walk into the tubing and up and out of the hole above. And because the hole is facing upwards, ants should initially walk straight onto the rope and then onto the islands. I had but to decide where to place the ropes so the ants could get easy access to the islands and what would look the most visually appealing. So I decided to go for this design. I wanted it so that the ants coming from either side could cross this central bridge to get to the main island. Plus I wanted a long piece of rope suspended in mid-air. I just thought it would look amazing to see ants using this as a highway to travel back and forth between other foraging areas in the setup. It was now time to complete this island foraging area by adding some filtered water. To do this, I'm going to use a large piece of tubing to act as a pipeway for the water. I will slowly pour into the tubing, and this should protect the substrate from being disturbed by the flow of water. Okay, here goes nothing. Let's add the rain to our rainforest islands. After removing the tubing and pushing any floating dirt into the water, our island setup was officially finished. I had but one thing to add, and then I could move this tank and connect it to the setup. I decided to coat Vaseline around the initial base of the entry tubing. This was mainly to prevent ants from walking onto the glass. After doing this, I carefully moved the tank to its permanent home. I then added a 7-watt heat mat to the back of the tank to generate some heat and humidity. I didn't want to place this directly under the tank as it would make the tank too humid and it would cause it to steam up. I then added some additional aesthetic items and then declared the tank ready for ants. It appeared the ants knew it was ready, as they seemed to be itching to get out. With much excitement, I opened up their tubing and plugged them into their new setup. They didn't seem shy at all. Some of them eagerly ran over the rope to explore their new surroundings. It was now time to link the other entry hole and have the ant highway reconnected. And finally, we had created a tropical island paradise for our ants. I'd like to hope that this somewhat replicates their natural environment and that I had successfully brought a piece of home to them. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I will see you in the next one.